Welcome to Abundance Unlocked, the cheat code to your well-rounded life. Meet your new money-savvy duo, one in real estate and the other in finance. Two powerhouse women keeping it authentic, raw, and relatable as they unpack what it really takes to build wealth, break generational cycles of brokenness, and design a lifestyle you don't need a vacation from.
Whether you're an entrepreneur, a 9-to-5 pro with big dreams, or a parent rewriting your family's legacy, this is your new go-to space for actionable game plans to make money, grow assets, and live abundantly.
This isn't just talk. It's strategy, it's mindset, it's real life receipts. Because abundance isn't just a goal,
it's your birthright.
Welcome to Abundance Unlocked, where we keep it raw, we keep it real, and 100% about the bag, the belief, and the blueprint. I'm Rakia, aka the Millennial Agent, real estate investor, abundance thinker, and your favorite homegirl with the keys, literally.
And I'm Tiana, your favorite financial educator, real estate investor, and abundance creator. So, listen, we're not going to sugarcoat it. The economy right now is wild. Would you agree?
Absolutely. No one knows what's going on from day to day. You got to keep up with, I used to keep up with stuff on a weekly basis. Now it's like a hourly basis.
I know. We talking about recessions, job loss in the federal government, tariffs. What else?
Everything.
It's wild. It's wild. It's wild. But we got to make sure that at times like this, we don't get scared. We start to get proactive. And we're not just praying that we'll get through it. We're planning our next move.
So today, guys, we're going to talk about how we can recession-proof our money. Our money, your money, anyone who's listening, money. Like, we want to share what we know so you don't get scared in times like this.
Yes. So let's talk about what we're doing to recession-proof our money. And I'll start with the first thing that I can think of. Let's start by being the solution, right? So being the solution to problems. A lot of businesses, you always hear a lot of businesses were created out of the recession, and it was because people saw that there was a need for something and they created a solution. How do you think we got Uber and Instacart? Man, Instacart, they knew that was my problem because no way do I want to go through the grocery store with two kids yelling and grabbing cereal out the aisle.
I don't even have kids, and I didn't want to go to the grocery store.
Exactly. Go to the grocery store and catch COVID. Why? So Instacart came through in the clutch. Uber, now a whole company found a way to make money using your car and your driving skills.
And if you think about Uber, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but to think about Uber was already kind of here. We had taxis, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't necessarily recreate the wheel. They took the wheel and made something new with the wheel.
Yes, they revolutionized the industry. If you can't be the first one to solve the problem, can you make the process better? And if you can, there's some big bucks in there, right? What's another way that we can recession-proof our money at a time like this?
I think ensuring that you have assets that will make you income regardless of the market. If it's an up market, you're going to make income. If it's a down market, whatever that income is will always be flowing through regardless of the market. And if you think that's a job, that is not a job. A job is not an asset because you may or may not have that job, especially if you're working for someone else, because you can't necessarily, well, you could fire yourself, but it's more than likely you're not going to fire yourself
not without notice, right?
Right, without notice, compared to losing a job in any industry, regardless of if it's during COVID times, when we had the housing crisis, now that we're seeing people lose their jobs through the federal government. I think definitely having assets that are going to grow and make sure that you're having income on a monthly basis is super important to recession-proof your money.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of people may not give themselves credit, but whatever career you've been in, whatever you went to school for, you learned a specific skill set. And there's people out there that need that skill set. I'm working with someone right now. She is great at throwing a party or planning an event. making sure things are orderly, the small little details that I don't want to do.
Hmm.
But yes, I would definitely pay someone to make my life easier. And she's had these skill sets for so long. Now it's just time to use what you already know and start monetizing it.
Exactly. There's so many ideas that you probably have in your head, but you're so stuck on this 9 to 5 mentality. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5. But you need to be able to use your 9 to 5 to create other streams of income
Mhm.
that are going to make you money in case that 9 to 5 cannot.
Yes, and that's why we see so much people selling courses or digital products, right? Once you can put what you know into a course and be able to teach other people, I just bought a course for how to acquire a car wash and car washes and laundromats. Yes, I paid for that because I want to know how I can grow my asset column, like you said, grow my asset column, have things that are working for me so that I don't always have to work for the money.
And I think in taking courses like that, a lot of people look at it, well, isn't that an expense? But I would put that not in an expense because that's an investment, right? You're
Absolutely.
investing in your future for whatever amount of money is less than you're going to pay for one credit at a college, I'm sure, for the course. And so a lot of people will look at that and say, well, aren't you telling me to spend more money to learn?
Yes.
Yes. Because sometimes you can learn, and I will talk a lot about YouTube University,
Mhm.
but a lot of things you need to know and have actionable steps. And sometimes you won't get that until you have a course
Absolutely. I
or,
say you're about
or teach a course or take a course. I'm sorry.
yeah, and you're about 4 podcasts away from learning how to do the skill. So
Listen,
yeah, so YouTube University is my best friend. Yes. So when it comes to real estate, how can we use real estate to recession proof our assets or our income?
I think there's multiple ways that you can do so. I think you have to look at your first home, like I always say, as your first investment property. So if you aren't using your home as, if you're in your home, you have equity in your home, that's income, right? If you need to use that income to buy assets, you have that money. A lot of people like, I don't have the money. Have you heard of a home equity line of credit? A lot of people have built their real estate portfolio. Not, I know you'll talk about building it through like insurance, but a lot of
Yes.
people have built it based on their first property. They use their first property to keep buying property through using the home equity lines of credit. So there's so many opportunities. You just have to see the opportunity. We're not waiting to use our equity when we sell our house. We're not waiting to use our equity when we need it for some financial crisis. We need to use our equity to buy more assets.
Absolutely. And for those of our viewers who don't know what a home equity line of credit, I know that when I first heard of it, I was like, and exactly how do you use that? How do you get the money out? So a home equity line of credit is just a credit card that's attached to the equity that's in your house. So you can get this line of credit and you can dip into it to buy things like other properties or even put a down payment on a business. You know, me and my husband, we're looking at commercial real estate right now. Listen, we're moving from out of residential into commercial.
Commercial is very
Yes.
sad.
So we actually just keep a home equity line of credit on our house ready to go for when opportunity presents itself.
And that's the great thing that you said about the home equity line of credit, because a lot of people think, oh, I just get this one amount and I use it for this. But there's so, I mean, we're not going to go into detail. Definitely talk to a financial institution to get more information about home equity lines of credit. But there's so many ways you can use it, pay it back, take more money out to buy more assets.
Absolutely. And I know we're going to get into later, but there's also other resources that you can use or tap into. You can build your asset portfolio, and you can use those assets to continue to generate more income by borrowing against it, or taking a loan out against things that you already own. So I am always just thinking, okay, how can I build up my asset column? Build up. We were just reading Rich Dad Poor Dad again for another perspective. You know, when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad the first time, I wasn't in the financial industry, and reading it now, oh my gosh, I feel like whatever I was thinking about doing over the next 10 years, we can probably crunch it down into 2 years. We already have the resources, and we got YouTube.
Listen, so I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I just actually finished it again this morning. First time I read it, I had multiple. Well, I was still working my 9 to 5. I was house hacking my home, and I was in real estate. So like I I read it, but I don't feel like I really internalized it into the world got a little quieter this year. And I literally, oh my gosh. I went to the mall yesterday and I was like, liability, liability, liability. Like none of these things are assets, right? And it really resonated with me, the assets and liabilities. I know you probably are tired of hearing me say that in the last like couple of weeks.
No,
but
that's
but
my
I'm
two favorite words.
but I'm so proud because now, I'm reading the book again. My niece has started 2 businesses at school.
Okay, niece.
She is. She's helping kids with their homework. She's also helping people with her some other things. In talking to her, I just see a 13-year-old who's super excited about owning these businesses. She's not thinking about a job. She's thinking about, obviously, I can't get a job right now at 13. How can I make money?
Did she read the book?
She does not read the book.
Oh, gosh.
I was just like, how is she doing this? And she has not read the book. But it makes me realize that what you know and you should be teaching your children, right? And if you don't have good habits, you need to learn those good habits in order to help your children. Because if I had the mindset she had at 13 and know the things I know, oh my gosh.
Yes.
I would so far.
You'd be president. No.
Not even want to do that.
No, not that though. Not that. President of my own business.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so let's switch the script up a little bit. How about when people are talking about gaining wealth, right? I'm in the financial industry, you're in real estate. Would you say you are team real estate or team stocks?
I'm team both. I'm
I'll take
team
them both.
learn both and diversify both. What about you?
I'm team both.
Okay.
I started with real estate and then I got into stocks. I felt like, and it just could be my path, getting my real estate license, being around my real estate mentor. That was the only thing that was just in my vision at the time. And then as I got more well-versed about, okay, I'm making money, I got some cash flow. Now what do I do with it? Now it was just like, oh, why don't you invest? And what's the stock market? Why is it that as an adult, this is the first time I'm hearing about the stock market and really understanding it? Then I got into stocks, but not necessarily individual stocks, more so mutual funds.
So for people who don't understand, well, a lot of people know what real estate is, right? But for people who don't understand stocks, I know you can't go into big detail, but can you give like a general idea of what a stock is so people are aware?
I love this. So I like to break down stocks as if I was talking to a 5th grader, right? So
I'm the 5th grader.
You're the 5th grader. So a stock is, if we're thinking about a piece of pizza, right? Owning stock is like owning a slice of the whole pizza. So many people can come in and they can own pieces of a company without being fully invested into or having the capital to buy the whole pizza. That's a stock. And when I talk about, I mentioned mutual funds. If I had to describe mutual funds is it's a bunch of companies, right? And it can be 30 companies, it can be 100 companies, it can be 500 companies where you have diversity amongst those companies and you can invest without putting yourself at too much risk. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Still feel like I need a whole course, but yes.
Well, we can definitely break it down. So just knowing that there are companies that are publicly traded, right? And us common people have the ability to invest in the performance of those stocks. One of the things that I really like is indexes. And if I had to explain what an index is, it's almost like being at a game, right? And you're just watching the scoreboard. So your money is not directly in the stock market where it can be volatile and go up and down. You're just looking at the scoreboard. And whatever happens on the scoreboard, they will put those points towards how well your index fund does. So if you heard of S&P 500 or if you've heard of NASDAQ, those are indexes and the performance will dictate how well your money performs.
Awesome. I know a little bit more now. I still need a course, but I know a little bit more, and hopefully you guys do as well.
Yes. Okay. So that's stocks versus real estate. A mixture is great. So let's talk about what the wealthy do differently in a recession versus the people who are not wealthy. So what we learn from wealthy people is what we're doing right now to stay ahead. So wealthy people are always being very proactive, right?
Finding
Usually,
opportunities everywhere.
absolutely. So one of the things that wealthy people do, is they buy when other people panic. So when the market is down, people start to panic and they don't know what to do. I get a lot of calls saying, "Hey, should I pull out my 401k? Should I, you know, do something very reactive,
Right.
right?" And yet, when wealthy people see an opportunity for, the market is going down, they see opportunity to buy things that are discounted, buy stock that is discounted. People who think they need to sell their homes, they're looking for great opportunities where people have financial strain and they want to come in and they want to buy while it's cheap.
Definitely. I feel like wealthy people see opportunity all around them, right? While other people will panic. And I feel like that's what the news wants us to do
Mhm.
is panic, right? And the wealthy people are like, you know what? I see opportunities because all these people who are middle class and below that may not have that financial literacy, they don't even understand that there's so much opportunity out here, right? And
Mhm.
that's because so many people are focusing on what? Their income they get from their job. They
Mhm.
don't they haven't changed their mindset to realize that there's opportunity in an up market just like it is opportunity in a down market.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons why I started looking into a laundromat or a car wash is because even during a recession, people are going to need to wash their clothes and they still want to wash their cars.
Absolutely.
So those businesses are pretty recession proof. Another thing that the wealthy do is they prioritize cash flow over clout, right? So they're looking at their budget. For me, I always take a look at my budget, especially when as a business owner things come up, right? I own a few I own a few properties, and what happens when the tenants aren't paying the bills? For me, I like to keep all my expenses as low as possible. So to make sure that I am producing the cash flow, right? And maybe it's bigger in certain months and it goes down in other months, but being able to go back to that expense column and to keep it managed so that I can always have cash flow, just being able to have that conversation with myself and with my husband, just to make sure, hey, are we on the same page? Can we cut back on some things? I think one time I had to go without my cleaning lady, right?
I did that for 1 month and I didn't do it again. That is an
I was like,
investment.
please, please, like, but you got to cut where you can cut. I can clean my own house. That's like a
Right.
luxury. So what are those things that you can cut?
There's so many. I know when COVID happened and we didn't know if we were going to be essential real estate. I was
Mhm.
literally before that. I was like, I was talking to my financial advisor, and I was just like, I feel like I got so many automations, right? And it's
Mhm.
so weird. Right before COVID, when things were shutting down, I cut off a lot of stuff that I really wasn't using. So for me, having that monthly conversation with my financial advisor to go over my budget, because if I don't do it with her, I'm not going to do it. Um, and like you said, seeing
Mhm.
those columns and saying like, okay, I can. And I think being an entrepreneur and being in this business, you can feel when things are about to happen. You can feel shifts, right? You
Yeah.
can feel when things start to slow down. And when
Mhm.
things start to slow down on my end, I always say, let me go on this liabilities column and see what I can
Cutting,
cut out,
cutting.
right? Because you want to do certain things, but you want to make sure that, like you said, you're not doing things for clout. I know one of the things that after I got my car crash last year, I had a nice Audi and I really, really loved it, and I was going to get another one. Then I realized I have a Honda sitting in the parking lot that I can drive. And so I realized, why do I need to have this expense?
Mhm.
Because it's an expense. It was not an investment. I wanted it. I got it. I loved it for 5 years. But I realized that, and I know when I always feel or I see things coming up, I'm not thinking about how can I take money out. Like you said, I'm trying to figure out how can I make my cash flow grow, and that's making sure that column for liabilities go down, and I do not participate in consumer debt. That's not, that's the
Yeah.
hard part.
It can be hard, but it is doable. It's definitely doable. So, the other thing that wealthy people do is they use economic uncertainty as leverage, especially when it comes to real estate. Um, for me, COVID, I did some buying and selling in COVID. I sold 2 apartment buildings during COVID, um, and it was it wasn't I'm a real estate agent, so I was able to go look at the market and see the change coming. And I had some tenants that weren't paying, so it was a very it was a good opportunity to sell, right? But during COVID, I sold those properties. We made great money from selling them and not holding on to a problem. And then we turned around and we found our primary residence that we got for like a 3.1% interest rate during COVID. So because of the economy, we started to look for deals because we weren't even looking to move. We weren't looking to move at all. Our house was enough, but we saw that opportunity and we jumped on it because we were able to walk into a lot of equity, more than we had at our previous home, and that's when we opened up our home equity line of credit, and now we have money that we can use to buy more assets. So it really worked out for us.
Yeah, and so I bought my home a long time ago. I know I look 5, but
I
I'm
know.
turning 40 this year. Not 5, but like 15, 25. Anyway, so I know for me, this goes back to, I started my career in 2007 as a probation officer, and I started saving for my first home when I was 17. I saw when the market crashed. I know people were getting like, they were like, "Oh, the market crashed. I can't get a job. I can't." All this stuff was happening. I was getting furloughed from work, but I still was working. So the furlough, our income was reduced for a few years.
Mhm.
I still was like, I'm paying this in my rent. I want to go buy a house. Like I saw how the houses were going down and down, and the first year before I was 20, well, I was 23, about to be 24. Started looking at homes, and I'm like, I don't want to buy this, right? I want more. So I started this. I stayed in an apartment for another year, and I was able to buy my house, for I want to say $120,000 less
Yes.
than what my neighbor bought the home for, and I knew that was a deal, but I didn't realize it was a deal until later on. And that's how I was able, to get in my first home for under $5,000 because my house stayed on the market for 90 days. I was
Yes.
just like, why are people not buying houses? Like, I have a good job. I wasn't making a ton of money, but at the time, my house, um, my mortgage, compared to what I was paying in rent, my mortgage was probably like $400 more. So it only made sense to buy it. And I saw the opportunity. I didn't know how I was going to do it. So I had to take a class. And this was before, I think we had YouTube by then, but no one was really going on YouTube for that. But I saw the opportunity. So now, like every time something happens, like when COVID happened and we didn't know if we were going to be able to work, I saw the opportunity. I was already teaching classes. I had access to Zoom. People were at home. Let me teach classes. And I made thousands of dollars the first month in COVID, not from selling a house,
But
from
class.
teaching. Right? I had the intellectual property within myself, and
Yes.
people were already taking my class before COVID. So why would they not take my class when they're just sitting at home, just waiting to learn?
And now they have time.
Now they have time, right? Exactly.
Yes. And one of the things that one of the things wealthy people do differently is that they do double down on financial education. I think it is very important to tell yourself, like, I don't know how to do that, but somebody's already doing it, and go find that person that can mentor you. That will save you so much time, so much money, and so much just headache from making a lot of mistakes. So anytime that I wanted to learn something, or I felt like, you know what, I think that idea can make me money. If I just knew how to do it, I can figure out how to scale it and create a income for myself. So definitely, you already have your intellectual properties. Use them. Use them. What you already know can definitely make you money. So they double down on that financial education. If you don't know how to piece it together, pay somebody to help you.
Right. And that success leaves clues, right? So you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, right? Success absolutely will leave you clues on how to do it for yourself. I think even for me, when it came to life insurance, I got a cash out life insurance when I was like 22, right? And then I started building it. Now I have several. But I never thought about it until I got into real estate to use it to buy houses, to buy more houses. I just thought about a home equity line of credit. I'll take the money from my equity in my house. No, no. I've had this. I'm about to be 40. So I've been paying into this for the last 18 years. So not until I got into real estate that I realized I could take this money out to buy more assets. So even if you have some knowledge, sometimes having different conversations with different people or taking different classes, you
Mhm.
can compound your knowledge to
Mhm.
create more wealth for yourself.
Yeah, and then that gives you strategy. And that's my favorite topic. How I created my 7-figure real estate portfolio was I did leverage my life insurance policy. And I've had my life insurance policy for the last 13 years. And to be honest, when I got it, it sounded like a good idea, but I really didn't know what I had.
Right.
It sounded like a great idea because you said I was listening to my insurance agent and she said, Tiana, this thing can do two things. Number one, it can protect you in case anything ever happened and life does throw curveballs. And number two, it's like a savings account where you can grow money and you can touch it before you're 59 and a half to do things like buy other assets, send your kids to school. And at 23, I didn't have no kids to send to school. I wasn't even thinking about that. But I like the other part. You said buy assets, right? So being able to learn how to use it, I used it 5 years after having it to buy my first real estate, my first piece of real estate investment property. And ever since then, when I did it the first time, I was like, you know what? I like this,
I'ma
and
keep
can I
doing
do it again? Yes, and I did. So with my life insurance policy, we bought 4 properties with mine and my husband's policies. And that money is there. It's keeping my family safe while we go out and take risk. And it's also just another strategy that I can add to my tool belt. So love, love, love learning about insurance. And it's changing all the time. So check your insurance policies if you have one. And if you don't know how to use it, holla at your girl.
Contact her.
Yes. Okay, so we talked about real estate versus stocks, right? Let's talk about the pros and cons though. So
Okay.
when it comes to real estate, right? Real estate, most people would say you need to have more money, or you need to have money to get into real estate. And what would you say to that?
To buying your first home?
Yes.
No, you just need strategy.
Mhm.
I bought my first home for under $5,000 in 2010. That was a long time ago.
Mhm.
But I also was able to put 2 people in homes in the last month and they got money back at closing,
That's
right?
what I'm talking about.
So at the end of the day, there's so many opportunities. There's so many ways to use little to no money to purchase a home. You just have to have strategy. You need to have the right real estate agent. You need to have the right lender and mortgage company representing you and knowing the strategies in order to win you the deal, 1, for the offer, and 2, to get you the best deal for the amount of money that you want to pay, which is usually little to no money.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I didn't look at it like a lot of people, the down payment assistance programs, they do come with a higher interest rate. You do have to pay some of them back. But at the end of the day, I had to pay back nothing compared to the equity I have in my home when I refinanced a few years later.
Yeah, so you definitely got to weigh your options, and then with real estate, it is a tangible asset that you can touch, you can feel, you can see it, you can look it up and see what kind of equity you have in it. But if we look at the flip side and we talk about stocks, to get into stocks, you don't have to have a lot of money. Very little. I mean, you can start a brokerage account with $10. So for someone who says, maybe I'm not ready to purchase my first home, number one, they probably need to come talk to you, right?
Holla at your girl.
But for that person who still, they may be focused on building other things like businesses before they buy their first property, you can get into stocks. You can open up a brokerage account. You can start by using $10. And you can see and you can learn as you go for a very low cost barrier, low entry point. And it's great for people with less time, like they want to get started today. You can't wake up today and buy a house, right? Have you?
No,
Maybe
no.
not all in one day, right?
I mean, I've done it in
So-
like 10 days, but that's
Yes. But today you can get up and you can start investing in stocks. But we both said the same thing. We like to choose both, have some diversification, because the stocks goes up and down pretty consistently, goes up and down, up and down, up and down.
right.
Whereas with homes, we can pretty much have good appreciation, even in a short amount of time.
Right. And I think having risky investments and having some that are not as risky are super important. You want to have some things that you can depend on. You want some things that can grow. and may not grow at the same time, right? You want to make sure you diversify and you're really knowledgeable about what you're doing. Like, don't just throw money in stocks. Don't just throw money to buy a house. You want to make sure you have a plan. So anytime someone talks to me about buying a home, I never say, are you pre-approved? Do you need to go get pre-approved? It's always a financial plan, because at the end of the day, it's so much bigger than a pre-approval, buying one stock. You need to understand what your financial plan for this decision. Like, you talk about all your money needs an assignment, and when you have an assignment, it's more than just one thing, right? So you want to make sure that you have a plan for your money and also have a plan for what you're purchasing.
Yes. So we do have some recession-proof habits that we swear by, and you already mentioned one of them: automating or having an assignment for your money. So when we talk about automation, right? Every commission check that I receive, there's a portion of it that goes to pay for, that goes into my life insurance, because that's me paying myself first. There's a portion of it that will go to paying off any consumer debt, right? So while we're using our cards to get our points up, right?
Yes.
We want to use that commission check to go ahead and pay those off every 30 days. Then I also automate my money to go to my emergency fund. And last but not least, I automate my money to go to investments. So I have 4 categories. Oh, and don't forget travel, because I want to travel too. What do you automate your money to do?
So my financial advisor said the only way you can save more and more is if I take it from you. So every year, the amount that goes towards my life insurance goes up by some hundreds every single year, to increase it. So I'm maximizing that as much as possible. So my money automatically goes there. I also have an S Corp. So every 2 weeks I get paid, and I pay myself first. So that's automatic every 2 weeks. I also have a couple of high yield savings accounts that money automatically goes there. I have another account called, I want to say it's Capital something. I forget I even have money over there. Money goes there, and that's my fun. That's my fun money. So I know I'm going to use my credit card to get my points so I can travel for free. So I have a separate account that's like my fun money. So I use that money to pay for the credit cards that I'm using to build up my points.
Yes.
I think that's all of them.
That's it.
I think so.
Okay. All right, cool. So another thing is, and we went to an event recently, a networking event together, and they had some questions, and I remember one very vividly, and I was like, why don't more people ask this question? And the question was, do you know your net worth? And if not, why haven't you calculated it? And I do calculate mine, just because I guess the industry that I'm in, and I'm always looking at it. So I always calculate it, especially because I need to use it to get leverage, right? To get other people's money. But one of the habits of the wealthy is tracking your net worth and not just your income. And that goes back to that asset and liability column. I was working with a client, and we were going over their finances. And one of the things that I saw is that they had nothing saved up in their asset column, but they made great money. They made great money. It's just that
Consumer debt, probably.
They didn't have any debt. But guess what? The money just didn't have an assignment. And they have a young son just like me. I know I went to the store to get some cleats. My son just started soccer. I went to go grab some stuff out of the store. I spent $80. $80. It was cleats and socks, and that is what happens with your money when you don't have a budget for it. Right. So when it's not getting allocated or assigned to that particular fund bucket or whatever you have allocated that money for, it just goes out the door. And half the time you're looking up trying to figure out where it went. I want to do something fun.
Okay. I'm ready.
So let's talk to our younger selves. Okay.
Ooh, child. How young we going? How young we going?
When we were young, dumb, and I don't say that last part. So wait. So one thing we would tell our broke selves right now.
I know one thing I would tell my broke self, and you said it so many times, but some things are really simple. Having an assignment for my money. That's one thing. And not to have lifestyle inflation. So the more money I made, even though I was using cash and it wasn't necessarily consumer debt, because I was like, if I didn't have the cash to buy the luxury, then the luxury is not getting purchased. I still increased my lifestyle based for a few years. I stopped. I will buy one luxury item a year. That I give myself one. But I think lifestyle inflation for me was a big one, and then not having an assignment for my money. Once I started having an assignment for my money and it going on automation, so it wasn't just assigning it, because then I might assign it and forget it's assigned, right?
Yep.
I need you to automatically just come out my paycheck before I can even think about it.
Yes.
What about you? What would you tell your broke self?
I would say, girl, you tried it. You know, when I sat down that time with my financial advisor and she asked me, Tiana, how much do you want to pay yourself? I said, I can pay myself $200 a month.
Damn, I pay myself more than that a month.
$200. But I was being so cheap to myself.
Yes.
So I would tell my younger self, stop being broke on the things that are important. Like, stop being cheap on the things that are important,
That's a good one.
and pay yourself better. Because how dare you, right? Because I'm talking to her and I'm looking at her in her face. I'm like, how dare you go to BB, right? Go to Charlotte Russe and get 2 pair of shoes, go out to eat, go do all of these things, and you only leave me $200. And what you want me to do with that? Right? So I would tell her that. Stop being cheap. Save for yourself if you know you can. Because what happened was, now married with kids, they be billing. Those bills are high. And you know, I knew that at that young age I had so much money I could have been saving.
Right.
So I would definitely tell her, stop being cheap when it comes to you. For sure.
I love that.
All right. So what else should we share this episode? So we got so just to sum up this episode, right? Some things that I would say is, even to my younger self or just to myself right now, start before you're ready. A lot of times we will overanalyze things and question it. You know, most of my decisions, the ones that were really good, they just happen because I say, you know what, I got enough to get started. Let me go ahead and start. Let me go in that direction. It's better than where I am right now, and it can only get me to something better. So, giving it enough thought to make a decent decision, and along the way, make it a great decision.
Awesome. And I think, you know, we talked a lot about recession-proofing your money. I think a lot of times in these quiet moments, these are the moments when things slow down, when a lot of people breed or birth a new idea. So take some of these quiet moments when things are slowing down and you may be worried, to start creating your strategy, start creating your plan. Because when things are good, we're not thinking about a plan. We're thinking about things are good. I'm enjoying it. It's good. We're not thinking about things going in another direction. But there's so many ebbs and flows of life. And if we are prepared for every ebb and flow, then we are far greater than people who are not.
I love that. That made a great episode.
Yes.
All
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Abundance Unlocked.
Have a great one. Make sure to follow us on all platforms.